A lot of people ask me, like, don't you feel bad for being a narcissist? Doesn't that suck? I'm like, I'm good. I'm fine being me. I have a personality disorder, but that's not going to end me. That's not going to be the end of my road, so to speak. But I'm going to work on it.
I love to tell people that apologies without actions are just a manipulation tactic. That's all that is.
That's pretty on point. But how are you able to come out and not only self-proclaim when there's just so much flack that narcissists are getting and they're blamed for all of life's problems? What's the story there?
Like, self-acceptance is huge. Just since I was younger, I've always kind of felt out of place, mainly because my emotional mindset didn't click like everybody else's did. I would see kids happy and playing and being friendly. I would see adults holding hands and things like that. I was always just wonder in my head, like, what makes you care about this person so much so that you would hold their hand?
Welcome back to the I Wish You Knew podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Andrey Korikov. Andrey, welcome back.
Thank you.
And today we have a very special guest, Lee Hammock. He's an expert in narcissism, which is one of the biggest topics out there on the internet right now. You cannot even be online for 5 seconds without seeing the word narcissism somewhere. So we've brought him in to tell us a lot more about what you need to know, if there's dangers involved, if it's overused, if it's underused. I'm curious to dive in here today. Lee, it is wonderful to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here today.
You know, there's one thing I really like about Lee's story is that he actually is a narcissist and he's been diagnosed as one, and he's coming out and he's talking about this experience. Lee, how did this happen?
How did the narcissism happen? Or how
well, the
did
narcissism, I'd love to know how that happened, but how are you able to come out and not only self-proclaim when there's just so much flack that narcissists are getting and they're blamed for all of life's problems? Mm-hmm. So not only did you have to deal with the diagnosis, but you also stepped out and said, I'm going to talk about this, and not just talk about this from my perspective, but also talk about this from the other perspective. What's the story there?
So for me, just since I was younger, I've always kind of felt out of place, so to speak. You know, I always kind of felt like an alien amongst human beings and whatnot, mainly because my emotional mindset didn't click like everybody else's did. You know, I would see kids happy and playing and being friendly. I would see adults holding hands and things like that. I was always just wonder in my head, like, what makes you care about this person so much so that you hold their hand? You know, so I've been kind of disconnected and feeling like an outlier my entire life. And as I got older, I still felt that way. Like, it didn't go away. You know, when you're younger, they teach you like everybody's different and special in their own way, you know? So I just like, I'm just special. I just don't connect emotionally like that to people. But it was just like the way I grew up and raised, like all my relationships as I got older started ending the same exact way. Like, I would be madly in love with somebody and then like a light switch would go off and it was like I didn't recognize the person. I didn't care about the person anymore. So I would just kind of force them to break up with me. I would like start intentionally treating them badly and start disconnecting from them and stop communicating as much just so they would break up with me, because I didn't, I don't like breaking up. I don't want to see the emotions and whatnot. But it got to that point where I actually got married because, how do I feel more? How do I look more human? How do I fit into society? Society says, hey, get married, have kids, go to school or whatever. So I got married. First, I had a kid first, but then I got married later on. I love my wife. It's just like it helped me fit in. But just like all my previous relationships, I just looked at her differently one day. I was just like, I can't stand you. I didn't like the sight of her. Everything that she said and did annoyed me. Everything. Like, she would talk about something, like, oh my goodness, and it would be something I talked about, something I brought up, and I was like, your perspective is irrelevant. So I was pushing her away just like I did everybody else. But I was also frustrated with how my own personal life was going, my financial life. My education level wasn't where I needed to be because, narcissistic people have that sense of entitlement and I need to be smarter and better than everybody. So my life wasn't where it needed to be. So one day I was like, literally, we had my 6-month-old son. She had left and went to the gym or something. And I couldn't get my work done because he was screaming and crying. And I just got frustrated. And I started yelling at him, hate that I did that. But I started yelling at him. And it just so happens, fate to have it. My wife came home early and she heard me screaming at him. So me and her got into an argument and I told her to get the hell out. you know. But she left, and on the way out the door, she was like, "It's so hard living with a narcissist." I was like, "Wait, what?" And I called her. I know what narcissist is. That's the definition, like conceited, cocky, whatever, entitlement. I know that. I'm like, why the hell you call like you're a narcissist? Like it takes you an hour to get ready. You work makeup. You do this. You do that. You know, I'm throwing it at her because, like, if anything, I'm kind and caring. I do a lot for people. So she left, and I got super angry, right? And so I looked it up. I was like, why did she call me that? So I looked it up, and you type in the word narcissist into Google. It just doesn't give you narcissist definition. It pops up and said, "Did you mean narcissistic personality disorder?" I was like, I didn't mean that, but let's go down this rabbit hole. Yeah. So I clicked on it, and the traits of narcissistic personality disorder gave me the answers to the questions of why I felt different when I was growing up. So it just fit me. I was like, wow. And so this was at the time I was like, 31 years old when that happened. But before that, I had been reading a lot of books, doing a lot of Tony Robbins and Les Brown and Gary Vaynerchuk. I was all into the personal development stuff because I knew something was going on. I knew something was wrong, but that just brought me so much clarity to my mind right there. So I was like, dang, this is me. So I have this personality disorder. Like, so what medicine for narcissism? You look it up. There's no pill. There's nothing you can take for it. They say, oh, therapy is the best medicine, so you have to go talk to a therapist. So what I did was I joined some self-aware diagnosed narcissist Facebook groups and whatnot, and they told me how to find a therapist. So I get on psychologytoday.com, and I started therapy in October of 2017. But fast forward to, I was in therapy for about 2.5 years, and then the pandemic happened, and then the stay-at-home orders and whatnot. And I just started I missed therapy appointments. So I started reverting back to my old behaviors. So again, my wife, I came home one day from dropping my oldest son off, and then she was gone. I was like, and I knew it was me. I was like, God. So I got back into therapy after missing about 4 or 5 months, and on the way to my wife ended up coming back like 3 months later. Like we were separated for like 3 months, and I just made a promise to myself. I was just like, I can't do this healing in silence type thing. And because I follow Gary Vaynerchuk, he was big on TikTok. He's like, get on TikTok, man. Just talk about TikTok. I was like, let me talk about mental health on TikTok. So I was on the way to therapy, and I was just like, hey, I have narcissistic personality disorder. I struggle with my mental health. I'm going to therapy right now. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, I'm an open book. And it just kind of started from that point forward. People were just like, you can't be a narcissist and diagnosed and talk about it. And and this was May of 2020. So it kind of just started from there with me just reaching out. Actually, you go back to my first video, I said, hey, this is going to be a place for men to talk about mental health and stuff like that. It's just like, there's no safe places for men to talk about mental health. And I'm an open book. So guys, if you want some mental health help, talk to me. I'm going to therapy.
Oh, I love the brand.
I love it.
I loved it. And the reason why actually I really like this, as soon as we learned that you're getting on and I went through your page, I was so excited because for me, my background is specifically in helping coaches. So we help coaches, inspirational speakers build their brands. And I initially built the Jordan Peterson brand, and then, we kind of worked our way down through that. And when we were building the Jordan Peterson brand, a lot of it was his specific authenticity that drove interest to him. It was his openness. And I saw a lot of that on your brand too, on your content. I really encourage everybody to go check it out. In the way you speak, there's a lot of very small and very finite details that you put into your video that are very authentic, and they really catch the conversation. I think personally that a good chunk of the attractiveness that you have in your channels has to do with the fact that you are so self-aware, not just of your weaknesses as a narcissist, but also of your strength.
And I'll follow up on that. So the reason that I really wanted you on here is I work extensively with attachment issues, which feeds directly into personality disorders, but it doesn't have to go there. Up to 50% of Americans now have an attachment issue, which is the precursor to a personality disorder that you don't go all the way. So a tremendous number of anxious, insecure women come to me, and they say, oh, my ex was narcissistic, he was this and this. But they don't say he's dead to me. They say, is there any hope he'll ever become aware? Is there any hope he might ever value me? And what I love so much about yours and your material is I've seen a couple guys come and go, try to be like, oh, I'm a self-aware narcissist. Here's answers, right? Giving women answers and hope, but they flame out super fast because it's fake stuff. Yours, I loved yours because you come in and you say, look, I went through this. Yes, I'm self-aware. This is what it would take a man to become self-aware. So I can point at yours and say, ladies, if he's not doing what Lee is doing here, do not throw your heart back into this game because he's going to be messing around with you. So has that been, let me ask you this. Have you not just had men for mental health come to you? Do you have women come to you for that purpose? Because women come to me desperate to figure out how to help a man have the awareness that you have.
So 90, like between 85 and 90% of my following is women. There wasn't the intent, but that's just where it ended up going and whatnot. So I do my like one-on-one coachings over Zoom and things like that. So most of the people I talk to are women that are searching for answers. But I talk to a lot of guys as well, and and people are looking for hope because they see me and they see my journey, and it's just like, well, you did it, so what's going on? It's like, yeah, I'm not saying it's not possible, but where's the consistency? And I always ask people, like, what have they been consistent with in their life other than maybe treating you bad or having you in this state of mind right here that you're in, that you had to reach out, you felt like the need to reach out to me, or you follow other people, relationship experts, or talking to coaches and things like that. Say, what else have they been consistent with? Because me, if you ask my wife, she's like, well, when he puts his mind to something, when he say he's going to do it, I can trust that he's going to do that, He never said, like, I'm gonna treat you good for the rest of your life. Like, he didn't say that, so I couldn't trust it. But like when I say I know I'm 30 years old, but I'm about to go back to school and get my degree. I did that. I literally just started doing that while working a first shift job in a warehouse. So I'm gonna lose 100 pounds. I did that. It's like I'm overweight. I gotta lose weight. So I've been consistent with other things. Like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. So what kind of consistency are they showing people? That's why I ask people. I was like, what type of consistency are they showing you right now, or have they shown you in the past? Because consistency matters. And I say the only acceptable apology is consistent changed behavior, because they can say the words like, I'm going to change, I'm going to do better. Show me the behavior. Show me the change.
I love to tell people that apologies without actions are just a manipulation tactic. That's all that is.
That's pretty on point. Mm-hmm. So what attributes of your personality with a narcissistic component as well are you finding are actually a strength? Like, because the self-awareness, the research, the amount of intent that you have into actually changing and becoming better really is quite unique. Not a lot of people have that. Not a lot of people who are even very successful have that self-awareness, but also the personal responsibility. So do you think there's maybe a component of the condition you have that could be also driving the positive aspects of what's happening to you?
Just so for me, one of the telltale signs of having a personality disorder or being high-level narcissism is lack of empathy, right? It's the lack to connect to people on an emotional level. And most people see that as a weakness. And I saw that as a weakness for a long time. But in my coaching, when I'm talking to people, that actually allows me to kind of weed through things. I understand, if somebody comes to me crying and stuff like that, I actually understand why you're crying. I cognitively, I can understand why you're crying. I was like, oh, you're crying because your husband been cheating on you, or your wife's been cheating on you with your best friend, and that sucks. I get that your family's been torn apart, but I don't connect to it emotionally, so I'm not sitting there boohoo crying. I can, hey, look, I understand what you're going through, but this is how we get out of it. This is how you go through it. So actually, the lack of empathy, the lack of emotional empathy, has helped me connect to people on a level where I'm not going to sit right here and cry with you through it. I feel it. I'm like, man, that sucks that you're going through that, but hey, look, let's go from the logical point right here, and to help me as well. Because I all the negative traits of narcissism, I read them, I study them, and I try to flip them on their head. I just how can I make this a positive? How do I turn this into a positive aspect instead of a negative aspect? Because a lot of people ask me, don't you feel bad for being a narcissist? Doesn't that suck? I'm like, I'm good. I'm fine being me. I've self-acceptance is huge. I know I can't get rid of the personality disorder. So what I'm going to do, am I going to mope and sit around about it, or I'm going to take action and try to flip it on its head and make positive and try to change people's lives in a positive way? Just say, hey, look, I have a personality disorder, but that's not going to end me. That's not going to be the end of my road, so to speak. So that's literally my first video. It's I got a personality disorder, but I'm going to work on it. I got a text message.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Let's roll. I was going through my phone a while back, and I found a text message I had sent to my wife about like because when I thought I was a narcissist, this is before therapy. After she called me a narcissist, she came back the first time. There was a message. I took like some little narcissism online test, and I was scoring super high on them. It was like 38 out of 40. I was like, that sucks. But I was like, you know, I'm gonna work on it though. I was like, I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna defeat this or whatever it is. So that's what I told her, and I've been working on it since that day. You know, for this, like I said, it's been almost 7 years of therapy now. This is like year 7 of therapy right now, and I'll be in therapy for the rest of my life. And that's why I tell people, like, narcissist or not, most people are not going to go get diagnosed with NPD, but are you willing to tolerate those behaviors that they're exhibiting for an extended period of time? Like, hey, and some people just tell you, this is me. This is me. I'm not changing. Why would I change who I am?
I love everything that you're saying because I work extensively, yes, with anxious and insecure women, but also with men who have what we would call avoidant attachment style, maybe like the baby version of NPD. And these men, they do come in and they say, Adam, this sucks. I don't feel as connected to other people. It's a smaller version of this. And they say, look, am I ever going to feel connected? Am I ever going to learn? And what I tell them is what you've just told me there is you can build intentional empathy. You don't have to have this natural overflow of abundant empathy that's out of control where you're going to burst out crying when someone else is crying, but you can practice intentional empathy with them and spend that moment with them. And that can mean so much more. As you're practicing that intentional empathy, you have children. Are they responding to that? Are they feeling good with that?
Oh yeah, mine definitely, because my like that's one of the biggest struggles is having kids. And I love the term intentional empathy. I haven't heard that. That's actually better than effective empathy. But with my kids, so I have 3 kids. I have a 15-year-old, a 7-year-old, and she just turned 3. And my 15-year-old, so I feel different. This is kind of why I hate empathy. You know, I just feel bad because like it's gonna sound weird, but like I hate the fact that all my kids get different versions of me. Like my oldest son, he's 15 years old. I've been in therapy for 7 years, so he got 8 years of toxic, emotionally abusive dad. You see what I'm saying? And I think about that. I hate it so much, you know, because it's not fair. Then my 7-year-old, you know, I've been in therapy for 7 years, so he's the one I was screaming at, you know. And I've for a long time I felt like my kids was afraid of me, you know. Like, and I hated that. So I have to be intentional with how my daughter, she gets the best version of me. She just, you know, she come to me and kiss me. I just love you so much. I'm like,
That's nice.
it's cool. Yeah.
It's so nice. We're talking a lot about being attractive and being appealing to people. Tell me about this. What is this?
Rugged Legacy Grooming Supply beard oil.
Beard oil. What do you do with beard oil? Kind of like it.
You oil your beard.
How do you oil your beard? You just take it and like rub your beard with it? What do you do?
You smear it into your face.
Is that what you do?
Feels incredible.
Morning? Let's see. So if I smear this into my face right now,
correct.
Am I going to smell like a narcissist?
You will smell better. In fact, I can already smell you smell a little bit better.
Nice. I like this.
What's nice is it actually feels soothing on your skin when you put that stuff on. So if your skin was itchy or dry before, it makes it very comfortable. So that way you don't have to itch your face halfway through a podcast.
Yeah, seriously. I was like looking at this halfway through the episode. I was like, I need this.
Yeah, a little bit. I hear you.
And it's just, I hate saying this, but like my oldest son, he's 15 and he's always trying to give me hugs, and it just feels so weird to hug my son, and it sucks. You know, it feels weird to say that out loud, that it feels weird to hug my son, you know. And he told me straight up, he's like, hey, just because you didn't get it when you were a kid don't mean you can't give it to me. And that's it's like, hey, I'm not. And I was like, you know what? Touche. It makes sense.
You know,
so,
I got to say this because I'm a dad as well, right? And, you know, there's some things that, you know, happened in my life I wasn't particularly happy with. And, you know, I went through a divorce and whatnot. And I remember specifically spending a lot of time trying to work on myself. And then I got this, you know, love. My daughter's 6.5. So I got this deep love from her when I wasn't feeling happy with myself. And really it was like this tearing thing at my soul, being like, man, I don't deserve this. But ultimately for her, as long as her every day got better, like she didn't know that she was not as good of a situation as she could have been. You know, she didn't know that I could be providing more, you know, at that moment. As long as her every day got better, her life is improving. You know, she's happy. Our relationship is growing because she's understanding that I'm spending time on that relationship and she's valuing that. So what happened back then doesn't particularly matter to her. It's whatever's mattering now. So it sounds like you really got it just in time, and like around that 6-7 year old age. If he's 15, I guess 8, right? That's really when they notice and they realize and they see you as more than the provider of security and safety and nurturing. They start awakening in their relationship, and if they see that you're working, man, that gives them so much. Like that's what builds that secure attachment, right?
Oh, 100%. So, and it's so funny, all three of us here sitting here as dads, like talking about tracking our kids. I got 5 kids. I got a master's degree in psychology. I was a marriage and family therapist for years, been doing this 15 years now. And I'm tracking my kids, like charting their attachment, like documenting this stuff. So all three of us are keeping eyes on our kids, which is amazing from all 3 different perspectives. One thing, Lee, that I have found is a tremendous number of people do come to me and say, oh, I think my parent was a narcissist and I've learned this and this happened and this happened. And I always say, did you ever go or have you ever gone to them and talk to them about some of the feelings you have and say, hey, Dad, do you love me? Hey, I didn't see or I didn't feel it, but it doesn't mean that you didn't love me. What was your experience? And when they do that, what they often do, if their parent is a decent person, their parent will share that experience and say, I had no idea you felt this. I had no idea you wanted that. I had no idea. And it's this huge healing moment. If I can dig a little bit and go personal a little bit, sounds like your son's coming to you. He's talking to you. He's aware of your diagnosis. He's aware of the challenges that you experience as a man. And that's cool. I love that. Have you ever gone to him proactively and been like, hey, you know what? I hate that it feels weird to hug, and I hate that you grew up with this stuff. What can we do going forward? Do you have those conversations with him?
So I've been more apt to have those conversations with him now than I would at the beginning of my therapy journey, at the beginning of my personal development awareness journey, because I just got to the point where I didn't want my sons to be like me, and didn't want my daughter to end up with somebody like me. So I was just like, and my therapist is like, well, guess what? You got to change, because you can tell them all you want to. They watching you. They got their eyes on you. So you have to change your behaviors if that's your goal, and whatnot. And they say, my mom, she worked second shift, so she was, my mom did everything she could. My dad, he was around, but he was like hyper focused on making more kids and having kids that he wasn't 100% involved with, But like you just said, going to your kids and talking to them, and so I have done that with my kids, but I just feel like trying to have that conversation with my dad would be extremely tough, because we friends on Facebook. We go back and forth and joke a little bit here and there, but he was super neglectful when we were growing up. Like, he just wasn't there. Like, he lived with my grandma for a long time, so when we would go see grandma, he would be there. So it's just like, oh, grandma watching us, but dad is here too. So it's kind of weird, but he would be disconnected so much. And it helped me just in my therapy journey. I was talking to my therapist about this, like, she said something about my dad, and my emotions just switched. She's like, you see how angry you just got? She's like, you hate people having control over you, right? I'm like, yes, I really do. She's like, your dad has control over you because you get angry when you talk about him. I was like, okay. So what I need to do to get rid of it? How do I get my control back? She was like, it could help to find out why he is the way he is. So I don't talk to him as much. So I'm just on the couch one day, and I got on Ancestry.com, and I just started building my family tree backwards. Because I knew my grandma, because he lived with her, right? But I never knew my grandpa. I would see pictures of him up and stuff like that. I just know he died when my dad was younger. But on Ancestry.com, it gives you hints. It gave me like a little hint. It's like, oh, this is, his name was James Chandler. Like, James Chandler, we found him. And I was like, okay, I was like, my grandpa's name. I was like, that's cool. But the only picture it had of him was his death certificate. And it was just like, it said the date, the time, and everything. It was like calls, small caliber gunshot wound to the head. So he went in the bathroom and shot himself. At 5:30 on a Monday morning, he decided to get up and go shoot himself in the head. And my dad found him, and that's what traumatized him as a kid. So that's what led to him being a neglectful, a disconnected adult. So that helped release a lot of the stuff that I had, a lot of the animosity that I had towards him. But understanding how he was raised, and it was just I can't, just this in his 60s or 70s when he found him. So there's no therapy for, a little boy back in the day, just like, oh, it's Monday. You back to school on Wednesday or Thursday.
Man, that right there, I've worked in mental health for 15 years now, and men's mental health is so crucial for this piece right here. People always ask me, "Oh, how did somebody get narcissistic, or how did someone get avoidant, or why don't they connect?" That right there, like you're a kid, you walk in, your dad is depressed and unhappy anyway. You grow up, and maybe you don't understand even how to connect to somebody. Then he kills himself, and you find him dead, and the kid, like, your world goes like inside out, everything turns dark, and you have to survive, and that clicks on that survival mode. The avoidant attachment is a hardcore survival mode for an awful world where no one's going to keep you safe. So your dad went hardcore survival, extreme, and never came out of it. And what he's going to do is he's going to lever arbitrary rules on you. He's not going to make you feel safe. You're not going to get your connection, and that lack of the bonding hormone oxytocin is going to hit you as a kid. You won't even get that. And then there's vasopressin bonding that we have to initiate fathers and sons into bonding through vasopressin, and it's a whole initiation ritual. That's why we have male initiation rites throughout human history. All of that is missing from father to son and father to son, and then there's you reclaiming that with your son and building that back in so that he can go forward and build it better with his son. That right there is the transmission of from bad to worse, but then back to good. You're that middle. You're the one that said, absolutely not. This is not going to continue this way. We're
this
going
ends
better.
with me.
This ends with me, and it's getting better here. I love that. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I personally really respect that as well, because one thing that I also wanted to note in the story that we have about your kids, what was going on was the idea that you are not only trying to figure out, your situation, your behaviors, but you're also monitoring your emotional state. You're trying not to get angry. You're actually trying to control yourself. Kids really notice that. Like, you can sit there through a birthday party and whatnot and spend the 2 hours, 3 hours playing pony. But if you're seething, if you're just angry the whole time, they don't care. They get freaked out by your emotional state. This is the hardest part of fixing yourself. You can lie to almost anybody out there, but you cannot lie to a kid. They do not have the neural processing power to understand your words and differentiate them from your state. They cannot make excuses for you. Yes. So the fact that you're able to go in and you're able to control that mental state and change the mental state is very powerful. How did you go about doing that? Because your dad, probably wasn't able to do that. He hid that pain in him the whole time. You did not. What was the change?
It's just because a lot of it stemmed from me not wanting to be like him. It's just like, well, I don't want to be like him, so I have to be better than him. How can I be better than him? So, I started working on it, trying to connect to my kids better, and things like that. But it does take practice overall. Just like Adam said, being intentional with it. Like even this morning, I have an example. This morning, like I get up at like 5:45. I'm doing I have a coaching call early. Then I had to get my 7-year-old up for school. He just, he did not want to get up today. Today was one of the rough days, and I finally kind of dragged him out of bed. I was like, "Go ahead and use the bathroom before you put your clothes on." He got up and he stomped out the room and he smacked his toys out in the ground, and I just instant rage. I was like, oh. I was like, oh. I had to take a deep breath. I was like, what is this? I have to ask myself, because that's what I've started doing, is kind of like a little short breath work. Take a deep breath and what is he going to accomplish by yelling at him this morning? He's going to have a bad day. I'm gonna have a bad day. I'm going to get whatever I want. I'm going to get because he's scared. He's going to be scared. He's going to do what I say because I'm yelling at him. I mean, he's going to be in a petrified state, but he's going to do it. So I'm just like, you know what? I know it's early. It's really early. It's cool to be angry sometimes. You get up in the morning, but we got to chill with the hitting stuff. And then 2 minutes later, he was up running around, putting stuff on, ready for some cereal and stuff. I was like, I had to pat myself on the back. My wife, she sees that she's cool. She's like, that's normal. That's why I had to learn how to kind of self-celebrate, because that's normal for other people. That's me going above and beyond just my natural reaction. So I have to pat myself on the back. I have to celebrate the small victories. I'm like, you know what? I'm proud of me for not reacting how I could have reacted. I reacted how I should have, but not how I could have. So I had to celebrate the little win to myself. Like, good job.
This connects to a much larger conversation, Andrey, that you and I have had before about masculinity in this world, and the role of masculine men like this to create safety and stability for others. And it doesn't come down to being feminine or nurturing and overly empathetic. It comes down to being able to be strong and be powerful, and then choosing to use that wisely and caringly for your children and for your family. That's a perfect example right there of healthy masculinity. I went up, I was angry. I have taught myself to come down and care for those around me and nurture them. I'm going to take care of it this way and move us forward. I love this. I'm so glad we pulled you on for this.
Yeah.
This is healthy masculinity and how we need it in the world.
But let me also flag this. So, Lee, you're basically playing with a handicap, right? You have a personality disorder, you have significant family trauma, you have other complicating circumstances in your life, and nonetheless, you're able to exhibit and probably initially even artificially learn and now exhibit and now embody these behaviors, which are behaviors of responsibility and safety and empowerment, so that this story does indeed end with you. And this does not get passed on to your children, this does not get passed on to their children. And what I really actually want to flag to the viewers and to everybody else is to understand how much energy it really takes and what the significance of these internal battles and the discipline and this constant internal warfare that you have in order to accomplish this. So what can you tell other men who are in the beginning parts of this journey, Lee, to encourage them to get to the stage where they, maybe some of them being narcissists, maybe some not being narcissists, having many different circumstances, can still accomplish the same outcome? Because in many ways, your outcome is fantastic. You're married, you have multiple kids, you're moving forward, these people respect you. And one thing that men need is respect. So how can you get them to the point where they can respect themselves enough to get others to respect them as well?
Without quitting, because it's exhausting?
Well, yeah, basically without quitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is exhausting. It's one of the things. I can't say it is exhausting, but in the end, it ends up being worth it. So what I've had to do for myself is to kind of define what winning looks like to me, because most people want to win. I just want to win. What does winning look like? So I had to kind of define what winning looks like to me. I could, and how I get to that actual win. My win is I want my kids to, do what I want them to do, or I want them to do it because they want to do it as well, because it's the best course of action. But how do I get there? How I get there is the win for me. I can yell and scream. I'm 6'3", I'm 250 pounds. I can impose my will if I wanted to. What does that do for them in the end? I can do that. But for me, winning is just like them being healthy and happy. Because my son, my 7-year-old, he is like, he's emotional. I would say that, he cries. He's very good at expressing his emotions in a good way. He'll cry, and like I said, he'll be angry and stuff like that, but he'll come back down, and he's kind of like an example for me. Sometimes it's like, you got mad right there, but you came down and whatever. So it's just like, sometimes I just kind of lean on them for examples of how to behave. Sometimes it sounds weird, but because, a lot of times this being childlike is not necessarily a bad thing in the world today. Just like, I'm cool being childlike, because he can come down and he can be happy a few minutes later, even though he didn't want to do it. He was happy a few minutes later, because like he is very good at expressing. Like, I had a flight to Australia, and I hate when people start crying. He started crying because I was about to catch a flight, and I was I had to walk around the car to talk to him. So I was like, while I was walking around the car, I was taking a deep breath. I was like, okay. Hey, son, I'm coming back home soon, because I didn't want to, I want to leave him better than how I got him, because like the first memory, I don't want his first memory of me to be me yelling at him, because that's how my story begins with my mental health journey, my therapy journey, is me yelling at him. I don't want that to be his beginning or his end. I don't want him to remember that, but I feel sometimes he does when he's like 7 or 8 months old when it happened. But I feel like just overall, what does winning look like to you? What does it mean to you? You can win by yelling and screaming, but how is it affecting everybody around you?
This is a conversation here, right here too. Man, there's so many good things for us to talk about. What you're talking about is giving real, authentic love to your children. Fathers come in and ask me all the time, Adam, I care about my kids, but does that mean I love them? guys today, we have this weird fascination with, do I really love my kids enough, right? And what we're talking about here is the definition of love is not affection, right? Affection is oxytocin. It's flooding with the oxytocin hormone, and then you feel affectionate, so you want to hug them. And men today, we think that that is love, but love is exactly, Lee, what you're talking about here. I will do what is actually best for my children long term, even if it costs me something. In fact, especially when it costs me something. That is the definition of fatherly love right there, is to sacrifice for your children for their ultimate good. I love that. Andre,
So
thoughts?
let me ask you this, because this is something I've been really wondering about a lot. This is such a good masculine definition of love that is completely underrepresented in society.
Yes.
Nobody teaches us this. There's no more movies that portray heroic love.
Very few.
There is nothing out there that portrays some form of actual like masculine honor-based system. And many men who starts gravitating towards that and start experiencing love and start showing that love actually often, I think, do get misdiagnosed, not even in therapy, but just even, just anecdotally as narcissists and avoidance and all of this. Adam, this question for you. Do you think that narcissists are being misdiagnosed? And Lee, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, with if you open up TikTok, there's 9 billion narcissists in the world, right? 7 billion humans, but 9 billion narcissists somehow.
Some double up.
Right? Every man on earth is a narcissist. We are all narcissistic, right? There's so much stuff going on right now, and part of that is there's a lot of injured women who've been hurt by men who have narcissistic traits, right? As a man becomes more and more avoidantly attached, he accrues narcissistic traits, and then off the spectrum of attachment, off into the dark zone over there, you have personality disorders when it becomes non-functional, when it fully overtakes that personality in that regard. The idea is, are personality disorders even quote unquote fixable? I believe that they are, but that's what we're talking about, is everyone in the world is narcissistic. Yes, we are overusing that term. Yes, there are people who are diagnosed wrong. I'm not saying Hewley. I mean, there's authentic places where it's real, but no, not everybody is a narcissist. And I would argue that these traits that we're experiencing, the research is fascinating on this. These are survival adaptations that are supposed to click on when a society collapses, when a natural disaster takes out everybody that could care for you, so that people can survive in horrible conditions. These are built into us. You're not an alien from another planet. You're a human who experienced this and this and this, and it shaped you this way. Now you have this corrective feature that you're laying in. You're doing generations of correction in the course of a few years with therapy. I do think this is a hyper masculinization, and I do think these are good traits. They can be when they are coupled this way. Does that answer your question there, Andre?
It does, but what do you think, Lee? Adam is talking as a professional. He's been doing this for quite a while. He's met some very interesting narcissists, and maybe some stories you can share later.
That's a whole other field.
We might have to bleep a few out, but there's been some stories I've even heard personally. But Lee, from your experience, I would like to also highlight the fact that you are coming in to this with a huge personal and societal responsibility. You really doing this yourself, you're doing this for your kids, but you're also teaching the world about this. How does it feel to have this term of narcissism just floating around everywhere? And what do you think about this?
So do I feel like the word narcissist is overused? Yeah, it is. Because I get tagged in posts and it's just like something weird to be happening. It's like, is this narcissist? Like, you...
Bro, you have no idea.
yeah, I was just like, it don't feel narcissist. This is just an argument right here. I get tagged and stuff like that all the time. So yeah, it is overused in that aspect of things. But I just feel like it does help a lot of people heal. Yeah, it's overused and whatnot. But what I tell people is to, even you hear my videos, I try to use the word narcissistic more often than I use the word actual narcissist. I was like, narcissistic people do this because it's the behaviors I tell people to focus on. I was like, what are you experiencing? You know what you're experiencing. Your experiences, are valid and whatnot. If they are, you could be lying. If your experiences are valid, then they are. If this is what you're going through. But I always tell people to focus on the behaviors. The word narcissist kind of gets people to focus on the behaviors. Even when I'm talking to people, they're like, "You think he's a narcissist?" I'm like, does that sound narcissistic? Possibly. Like, but what are the behaviors that you're observing? Are you willing to accept these behaviors, are these behaviors acceptable long term or going or moving forward for you in the future? Because that's what you need to focus on. Like, the term might have gotten you here to focus on the behaviors, but it falls onto you. Like, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with the knowledge that you've gained and whatnot? Because a lot of the stories I tell come from a personal perspective. I was just like, when I'm having trouble connecting to my kids or my wife or whatnot, I'm telling those stories, and then people, the comment section be going just wild sometimes with the stories and things like that, and where people have experienced. And I've heard some, like you said, I've heard some crazy stories over the last few years as well from people, Everybody's story is going to be different as well. Some stories are worse than others, but everybody's experience is different, because something that's worse to me might not be as bad to you. This ruined my life, or this just was a minor setback to me. It just really depends on where you are. But I do think it is thrown around a lot. That's why I try to. Am I responsible for it a little bit? Yeah, I threw it around a lot when I first getting started in my journey too, because I really just wanted to talk about mental health. But somebody just gave me the moniker of self-aware narcissist. So I just called it to run with it. So I started talking about narcissism. But I realized, like, you know what? Let me start saying narcissistic more. Or I say narcissist and toxic people, because I know that not everybody is going to be clinically diagnosed, if you even took them to therapy, as a narcissist. Some people have other things going on as well. They could be, have PTSD or TPTSD. There's so many different things that you could have, but it's the behaviors that I tell people to focus on. I just what are they doing? And what are they doing? Are they willing to work on it? And if not, are you willing to accept that? Because, I heard somebody say recently, like, what you don't change, you choose. If you're dealing with a narcissistic person and you don't leave them, or if they're not going to change those behaviors, they feel like you're choosing it. So just, why would they don't have any incentive to change, because most narcissists don't. Just being realistic.
100%.
It's an agency thing. So what advice would you actually give men who are trying to move through this journey, and how would you coach a man who is experiencing maybe the same symptoms and the same outcomes as you?
I talk to men like that all the time, actually. That's part of my coaching thing. I talk to probably, last few years, a couple hundred people that think they're narcissists and whatnot, and the main thing I try to convey to people is, it might not be your fault that you are the way you are, but your behaviors now are your responsibility. It's not fair how you were raised. Like, they'll say something like, my mom was a narcissist or my dad was neglectful. I was like, that sucks. And it's not fair that you got raised that way. You don't get to, there's not an assembly line you get to pick your parents off of. Give me those two toxic, abusive parents right there. You're not going to go do that, but that's the hand you got dealt sometimes. But when you grow up and when you become aware of it, now that you're talking to me, it's like, it's your responsibility to work on those behaviors if you want to keep your family dynamic together. Because honestly, I didn't have to put the work in. I could just still had a pretty good life. I could have just, just people say, I could find another wife. I could. Being realistic.
And why didn't you? So why didn't you, experiencing all this stuff? This sounds like so much work. Why are you still with your wife if you cannot emotionally connect the same way that people do? What does that hold you guys together?
Good question.
I can connect to her. I can connect to her emotionally. It's just the thing for me is that I don't know. It really is. It's hard to describe. It's just like, she's my person. Like, I just feel like, and I know this is super simplistic to say, but she gets me. She's understanding. I feel like she's everything that I want to be. She's like my role model emotionally. She's my emotional role model. I want to be like her. People are just like, you're a simp. I was like, no, I don't want to be crying and soft. I don't want that. I want the part of her that's genuine, the good part of her, the kind, caring, compassionate part. I can express that in a way that's beneficial to me as well. But I do love my wife. But my therapy journey isn't based on her. And I tell people, I was just like, she could come here right now and it's like, hey babe, I decided to pack up and leave. I'm like, would that suck? Yes. But I was still, I would still go to therapy. I'll still go to therapy next week. I'll still be in there.
I love this I love this piece right here so much. I honestly, I've been married 15 years. I feel the same way about my wife that you do, right? It's deep respect and trust and admiration on both sides. One thing that I have found, and one thing I keep hammering home, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, is A lot of narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, all of them, avoidant personality disorder, off on that side, the avoidant features. Avoidant attachment begins with the idea that nobody else will ever be fair, nobody else is ever going to care, no one else will ever be responsible, and that nobody else is going to step up. And it only really begins to heal in any capacity when we do start to believe that somebody somewhere does care, that somebody is going to step forward and be responsible, be moral, be honest. It sounds to me like that your wife is that person for you. She is the person that you've gained faith in. Is that an accurate way to say it?
Yeah, I feel like overall, she's one of the people I trust in the world to be emotionally vulnerable to be, to not hurt me with my emotion. If I am vulnerable to you, you won't use this against me later on. Hey, you remember you were crying later? You remember you were crying earlier? You're a punk. You're a she's not gonna say that to me.
How dare you display a tear?
Yeah. I saw you crying earlier. You little punk. It's just like she wouldn't do that. So I feel like, even like I said, so I do trust her. I do trust her emotionally to share things with her. But also, I feel like what has helped me connect, because my therapist is a woman as well, and my therapist kind of looks like my wife. So there's like a little like it's
whatever floats your boat.
It's just like it just helps me.
Works, man. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
She kind of looks like her. So sometimes I'll run things by my therapist. I'm like, my wife said this. What did you think? It just helps because I actually trust my therapist as well. I feel like trust is big. Because I feel like I tell people I've been in therapy for 7 years, and I was already in for 2.5. My wife still left. I hate that when it does that. I was already in the balloons. I was already in therapy, and she still left because I didn't fully trust my therapist. When I got back into therapy full time in May of 2020, but one of the goals I set for myself is like, I'm going to trust my therapist. I'm going to be vulnerable to her, because what's the worst that could happen? She can't tell anybody what I say unless I'm going to go out here and hurt somebody. It's just like, if anybody, tell your therapist, She's like, unless you're going to go out here and just like, look, I'm going to go home and hurt people. Then she gets reported. But like anything else you tell them, they keep it. And I'm like, she's going to judge me. That's my biggest fear of being judged. I was like, she's going to judge me when I tell her the truth about how I feel about this circumstance. But then I told her, she's like, I was like, I was nervous. I was sweating. I was getting like goosebumps. I got to tell my therapist this. I have to say this out loud. And I said it with my eyes down, diverted, like a wounded, like a scared dog, But then she was like, now we can work. And she said that. She was like,
now we can start.
Now the work. Now the real work begins. I'm glad you said that. So now the real work begins because that's vulnerability. That's honesty. Now the real work begins because even y'all had mentioned about loving your kids earlier. I told my therapist like, I feel like I struggle to love my kids because when they're crying, I don't connect to it. She's like, but you try to connect. Like you're still there. You're frustrated with with your reaction. That's love. She's like, it don't seem like it's not your normal definition. Because you're frustrated with how you can't connect and you're still trying to connect. That's love. Some people will just leave. Like, I can't connect to them. Maybe I don't love them. Maybe I start me a new family. It's like, that's love. Like, that's love. The love is work. Love is action. So I was just like, people say love is a verb. So you put it into action, you put it into work. And I think I almost shed a tear in there. So you about to cry in here. It's like, oh.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good. I feel that.
This is good. No, so what you're describing is building what we would call secure attachment, where you have the connection of trust between you and the other person, you and your therapist, you and your wife, you and your son. You're building secure attachment. People ask me all the time, Adam, is secure attachment really going to help me? Am I really going to feel any better? Well, yeah, you're going to have a human that you can trust. Like that changes everything.
So do you even understand what that does? But one thing that I really love about what you're saying here, Lee, is one thing too. So you have identified the issue. You've identified that like the loneliness that you were experiencing, and you started doing proofs of concept, right? You said, I'm going to have a proof of concept where I'm going to love a woman and assume she's not going to turn out evil, and we're going to experiment with that. And by her existence alone, what I'm understanding is that you've created the possibility for humans like this to exist from scratch, right? So that's why you're saying also, I think that, say, hey, if you leave me, I'm going to be really sad, but you've already done the healing for me and proving that a woman like you can actually be present. Same thing maybe with your therapy, where you're saying, you have done your healing by showing me that this reality can exist. And basically, bit by bit by bit, you're reassembling a view of the world where love is possible. Even if you can't define it, you don't have a word for it because it's something that's maybe new or not really you can experience in the same way as other humans. You're creating a world where love is possible. You're reassembling a reality from completely a broken state. What is the biology of that, Adam? What is happening in somebody's brain who's experiencing this?
Man, the biology of this, it's really fascinating. So somebody who has attachment issues where they cannot connect to other human beings because they've been scared, they've been hurt, they don't have that proof of concept of that they will ever be loved. Your brain goes into the cortisol pathway and endless cortisol. You have very low resilience against stress. You'll just always feel it. And then you will cope with that through dopamine, of binging dopamine. I will feel good. This is why people who have narcissistic traits, they will usually, I don't want to say use other people, but they will almost binge other people and have dopamine experiences with other people. And then to keep them around, they'll throw dopamine at them. And it feels like relationships are an exchange of dopamine back and forth.
Especially in the beginning. Like the first 6
Especially in the
months,
beginning.
you're like,
yeah, first 6 months.
You know, let's go
novelty.
crazy.
And
whatnot.
after 6 or 7 months is usually where guys start asking me, like, Adam, maybe I'm not made for monogamy. Adam, maybe I need 5 girlfriends. Adam, I like this woman, but, it's just not doing it for me. But they haven't entered the pathway of oxytocin, vasopressin, GABA. GABA doesn't really release much until you get oxytocin, and then you suddenly you sleep better at night, right? Because you know that somebody loves you and somebody will watch over you in the night and take care of you. You don't really get as much serotonin.
And then you wake up in like cold sweat halfway through the night being like, what is happening? And why am I not in my regular self?
It's such a exhausting and crazy transformation to go from the cortisol dopamine pathways over the oxytocin, vasopressin, serotonin, GABA pathways. Like your brain doesn't even function the same. The chemicals are different. It's incredible. And I know you experienced that early on in your transformation. Lee, did you go through an experience of like, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? Was that a weird piece for you going through all this?
Yeah, I feel like I always have kind of breakthroughs and things like that on this journey of
what a ride
development. And just it is a wild ride. It's emotionally, just like mentally, everything. There's a kind of newness to everything, especially when you're aware of it. I just feel like I've been, for a big chunk of my life, I was present, but it felt like I was like the co-pilot. I was co-piloting my life and whatnot. And I feel like the narcissism was the pilot, but I feel like the last few years we switched seats. The narcissism, it doesn't go away. It's still in the plane. It's still in the cabin. It's still there. But it just, I'm in control more now. I manage my emotions and a lot of things a lot better, because I've had to, let's say, when I guess the love bombing stops, or when I was saying earlier, when the lights go off in a relationship, I would feel disconnected. Like, maybe somebody else, maybe I need to find somebody else. Maybe somebody else can make me feel this better. So I would just chase another person.
Adam, speaking of love bombing, this is something a lot of your clients struggle with. So how do you help them, and what do you do to help them?
Keep in mind that every relationship requires a host of really good skills. You need to know boundaries. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to catch manipulations. And you have to be aware of when somebody is just being fake with you. All of these are skills that you need to learn. And these are skills that we're talking about inside my mentorship program, The Attachment Circle, where I walk people for a whole year, sometimes multiple years, through this guided journey to learn those skills and build the relationships in their life that they've always wanted.
And how does that compare to therapy?
The therapeutic relationship can be helpful with some one-on-one guidance, but what you really need is, number one, a mentor who has been there for a long time and can step right with you and follow you on that journey. But you also need a guided community that has been there, that can understand you. Not even professionals, but companions on that journey who will fully understand you and can give you life advice from their own experience too. And it's also about 1/5 the price of a therapy session.
It's give me more power to be in control and have the discipline not to do that, because I could run around and do crazy stuff. It seems like now that all you need is a big platform. You get, women they come at you, just
I'm sure they do. But also it's a self-protection thing, right? Because and I'm sure deep down, that if you choose to follow that path and you choose to restart that again, it will kick you backwards, and you will wake up in the same place you left years and years ago. And that is the horrible feeling of feeling like you have not moved and you will never escape. And that is something that holds me back in many ways, and also holds a lot of other guys back, because you say, what is your option? You can't live that life. You must live this one or you're dead. So it's a deep feeling. Does that resonate with you, Lee? Is that something that you kind of feel?
It does, because like also just part of the personality disorder part of it is just like I don't like people having control over me, and
Right.
if I did something like that, that person would have some type of control over my life.
Ah, interesting.
Kind of like my father is just like it's just like how your dad had that power. You be taking that from your dad and giving it to somebody else. Do you actually want
Interesting.
that? Do you want to go back into it? Just like you said earlier, do you want to go back into those feelings again of having
Yeah.
somebody else be in control of your life and having some type of power over you? No, it's just like, so it's part of it is that as well. Just like, you know what? No, I don't know. You can't have the power. It gives me more power.
The
Not
sovereignty.
To,
It's a
you know?
self-sovereignty. I like the idea of self-sovereignty 100%, especially for a good, like, masculine, transformation that we're talking about here. I'm actually curious, do you have any aspects that also help you aside from therapy? Maybe like spirituality or some form of a fitness routine, nutrition? Like, what else is here as part of this complex solution?
Yeah, so even before therapy, so I'm 38 now. So I started therapy when I was in, was it 2007? So I was 32 when I started therapy. Before that, I had done a lot of personal development. Like I said, I was doing a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk, a lot of Les Brown, and reading all the books, Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins and all that. I was doing a lot of that, a ton of it. I still do that now because that still helps me out a lot. I do go to the gym and whatnot. I do work out, but I also read the Bible. When my wife left the last time, when she left when the pandemic started, I was like completely lost, and therapy had transitioned to virtual, and they had shut it down for a little while because she didn't know what she was going to do. I was super lost, so I started reading the Bible. I was just like, what else could I do audiobooks. I'm a real estate agent, and I started reading the Bible. I was like, you know what? And I was connecting. Actually, the Bible helped out so much. I'm not super religious, but it just helped connect a lot of those stories. It felt like me. I'm like, damn, I could have wrote this. It's just like this feels like God. People say that I feel like God's talking to me right now. It's just,
Yeah.
He's sending a message to me. So I feel like that helped out a lot right there. Because I was definitely lost, and I feel like it's so many things that have gone right in my life that have helped me out so much, and I just feel like it's I became more of a believer because of this journey, because it's too much it's too many things going right that didn't have to, because like I tell the story about when I was like 8 or 9 years old, a girl called me ugly, and that made me hyper focused on my looks. Like I had to focus on how I look, so I'm just like nobody ever gonna call me ugly again, And it's stupid. It's an ignorant feeling because like you always think somebody's going to look at you a certain type of way, look at you weird in a weird type of way. And that was like when I was 8 years old, and my 15-year-old son, he plays at a league over here in North Carolina, and one of the last games of the season, that girl is standing beside me. 30 years later in a different city, standing right beside me, and I was just like, and it's just like, how did this happen? So it's just like it could be coincidentally, that's coincidence, but like it's just like I tell my therapist, like, everything's gonna work out the way it's supposed to work out. It's like this is a God blessed journey. I don't just try to force it on nobody. I just like my journey blessed by God. Just believing in, and I think that helps out with a lot of people believing in something that's bigger than you, because it gives you something to worship other than yourself. Because like that self worship is kind of
Always
it
dangerous.
can take you down a dark path. Yeah, it
That's
take you down
dangerous.
a very dark path.
Is this the best you can do? Is really like you have to ask yourself that over and over and over again. If you don't believe in something that's higher than you and say, is this the best you can do? And you watch yourself fail and you say, this really is the best I can do and it's not enough. Man, that destroys you as a man, because why would you trust yourself going forward, right? If you trust only yourself and you fail, you're done. Your own relationship with yourself is dead. And then you got nothing left, just, risk mitigation. Right, and living your life in fear, like risk mitigation of mostly yourself, just not knowing what's going to happen, is very much what leads to many instances of self-harm and abusive behavior, personality disorders, addictions of very many different types. And
Ego collapse.
Ego collapse. It's definitely a very dangerous world out there.
Some of the worst dating advice you will ever receive is to just be yourself. Because what guys do is show up uncombed, undressed, and nasty looking on a date to see if the woman will accept him. What I recommend is that you be the best version of yourself. And sometimes that means you need a product in your hair or in your beard, such as Rugged Legacy Grooming Supplies, which will help you become the best version of yourself for your next date.
I actually resonate very much with what Lee said too, because when I was going through my divorce, I actually started reading the Bible, and it was the first thing that helped me even start generating language to start understanding and explaining the feelings and the concepts that I had. And that's actually when I started talking to Adam as well, and he was my first mentor actually in spirituality. It was really interesting. And when we started talking, he started using these words, and I said, Adam, I need you to pick different language with me. And he said, why? I go, you say, you're using these things like, God and love. I don't understand them. I have no concept of them in my brain. And as the language developed and we're able to delve into things, it really started, creating a new world picture that something different is possible. And that's the idea. And the stories of hope and redemption, all this stuff kind of stem from that. So it's a very powerful tool for sure. One thing I'm actually very curious about, Lee, you had a lot of challenges in your life. You obviously have a lot of, reflection and responsibility of things, you've done and didn't do. Would you ever change anything that has happened to you? Knowing where you are now, what would you change?
I don't say the only thing I probably, if I could change anything, would probably be how I treated my kids when they were younger. Everything else, I just feel like was supposed to happen.
Interesting.
I just feel like because of how my life is going now, I feel like everything was supposed to happen. Even the struggles, even the sadness, even the toxic behaviors or whatever. I hate that other people have to experience it, of course. But like everything happens. When they say everything happens for a reason, I feel like the main thing I would change is like how I treated my kids when they were younger. Just the effect that I had on them. That's the main thing that pops into my head, because I feel like everything else is just it was supposed to happen in some way, shape, or form. It's just weird how it's been working out. Because if you'd asked me that question but 5 years ago, I was like, I would not been lazier in school and went to college to play sports or whatever. Like it would have been all of that, But now I'm fine not doing that type of stuff. It still sucks, But I'm just like, I'm cool. I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and I just feel like, accepting where I am, but still wanting, still pursuing more is cool, as opposed to just not feeling like it's not enough. There's a whole different feeling right there. Just like, I'm good with where I am, but I can still work harder to go get more if I so choose. But a few years ago, it's just like nothing is ever going to be good enough, and that's like self-defeating right there. It's just like you can't win in that situation.
You're bound to lose. You're going to always fall short. Like, doesn't matter if you're religious or non-religious, and you kind of have this concept of you cannot do things on your own. It is true, right? You're always going to fall short. One thing that many people ask you, Adam, often is when they say, why should I fix my attachment and become secure? Why should I work on myself? Or often, my own coaches ask me that a fair amount of times, like, why should I change? And I say, because you'll find peace. Right? You will find peace. And for a person who's never experienced peace, you have no idea how good and how sweet and how amazing it feels, because it means you can just exist and not have to fight for things over and over and over and expect to get backstabbed. And even if you just have a couple of seconds of peace of day, it'll transform your life. Right? That's why you should go and pursue this journey. And I think, Lee, it sounds like really your journey was a journey to peace and acceptance over a long period of time. But many people don't want to understand why that's necessary. Lee, would you agree? And how would you motivate somebody who's questioning that journey?
So that's actually part of my journey right there. Because like a lot of times people don't want to change because their needs are still going to be met if they don't change. Like, if I don't change and my wife leaves, I can find another wife. I can start a whole nother family.
Sure, go ahead.
Because my mindset was that way for a long time. It's just like, well, you can leave, right? I'm not going to change these behaviors. You can leave. But when I go to sleep at night sometimes, it's hard for me to sleep sometimes. I'll just be staring at her. I was just like, I can't imagine being with anybody else but her. But also the thought pops into my head, just like, I can't imagine her being with anybody else too. That's just, it's a whole different story. It just run into your head right there. That rolls into my head, but I feel like it's worth it, because not only that peace is scary. It is, because like we feel like when you're at peace, you feel like there's nothing else. Just like a lot of people, I think, have this misconception of peace just being at this static state, like there's nothing else but like silence and flowers and stuff like that around you. Where peace for me means I'm happy with where I am. You know, I'm happy with what I've achieved. But can I still go get more? Can I go back to school and get another degree? Can I do that? Yeah, I can do that. But I'm good. You know, I just feel like being happy with where you are and being happy with who you are is extremely important, because I think so many people have these internal battles with who they are, who they think they're supposed to be. And that is a losing battle that I fought for a very, very long time. You know, that's how I gained 100 pounds. That's how, you know, it's just like, I'm supposed to be this. And I would just eat my sadness and eat my sorrow and have narcissistic rage, what people call it. You know, I'd be rage episodes and everybody around me would suffer, including my kids. But now that I found more peace, yeah, I might suffer here and there, you know, because it doesn't, like I said, the personality disorder doesn't go away. It's not, I'm fine, but it just feel like everybody around me is better too. I just feel like everybody around me smiles. When I see other people around me having genuine smiles, like my kids and my family, it's just like, I'm good. You know, I'm happy right there. I just feel like when people are not afraid of me, you know, just to achieve that goal of having your family and friends and people around you because they want to be around you, not because they're forced to or not because they're afraid of not being around you, is a whole different feeling right there. So I feel like,
How long does that feeling take to build? Like, so how long did it take you to get to the stage where you were actually believing that that was real and was going to stay?
it's still building now. Actually, it's still a continuous process. It's still building right now. I'm at more peace. Yeah, I'm at more peace. Just for me, because I feel like I feel like if I stop going to therapy, or if I feel like I don't need therapy, that means I feel like I'm cured, you know. And there's also just for me, just being realistic, there's a fear of being cured and not having this. Like, who am I without this? You know, who am I supposed to be without this personality disorder, without these feelings? 'Cause I've had almost 4 decades of feeling this way. Like, I'm scared not to be this way now. But I just feel like also there's always improvements to make regardless of like whether or not it goes away or not. There's always improvements that I can make on, because I'll have a mind, like, when I'm going to therapy, I'll have something in my mind that I want to talk about. But very rarely does that come up. We might start off on that. She's like, what's going on new? I was like, well, guess what happened? You know, my friend did this, and she's like, tell me more. And we just go on this whole new topic. Like, now we own Ancestry.com and childhood issues and, you know, just neglect and abandonment and loving your kid. It's just, it goes where it needs to go. You know, that's what I was just saying. Just always something more you can learn about yourself. Yeah.
What would happen to you if you stopped going to therapy? What would you project?
A few years ago, probably like 2 or 3 years ago, I probably would have it would have been easier for me to revert back to my old behaviors, because that's what I was accustomed to. You know, just being toxic and manipulative and just being who I was. That's easier to fall back into. Now, I feel like because most of the work I've understood now, that I go to therapy once or twice a month. So most of the work that I do, that's 1 or 2 hours a month. So most of the stuff I do for myself is outside of therapy anyway. So most of the work that I put in is outside the therapist's office. It's taking the actions to be a better person anyway outside of therapy. So if I had to stop going now, because it just gonna sound funny, but since I've been in therapy, my therapist has had 2 kids, and each time she had a kid, my wife left. It's like clockwork, because she go out on leave and my wife will leave because I miss therapy because she's not there. But she had another one. She had 3 because her kids about the same age as mine, which is weird. But she had another one, and I was okay. 4 months went by, and we were fine. I was just like, because I'm putting in the work outside of therapy. I'm being intentional with my actions and my disciplines and things like that. I'm asking myself the question: how does this benefit me, and how does it affect others? Because those 2 questions help. Because normally I would just how does this benefit me would be the question I would ask, and I would just act on that. Now it's just like, how does this benefit me, and how does this affect other people, and how do we get to a win-win situation? A lot of times, you know, even to feel like, because it used to feel like a loss. Like my son, if I let my son smack stuff around, it would make me feel ashamed. I was like, he feels like I'm not a man anymore, because he feel like he can just slap things around and yell at me. I'm not a man. So it's just like, it's a win for me not to just yell at him and just impose my will upon him. You know, I just like that's a win. I had to transition to what winning actually is for me, as opposed to what other people might view as winning. You let your son talk to you like that? Damn, you a simp. Ugh. You know. Woo. Yeah, I get called a simp all the time. I get called a simp all the time. It's just funny now because people think because I talk about mental health, I always get. I talk to a lot of men, but people just think I'm pandering to women when I talk about mental health. I was like, yeah, I'm talking about mental health. Like about my own person. Yeah, you're a simp, man. Your wife's emotions are not valid. Women belong. They just, a lot of people just had that women belong in a certain aspect, and you just you trying to connect to your wife is just stupid. Just just
You touch a
scream at her,
nerve there.
Yeah.
You touch a nerve there. People get real angry online, and they go, "Man, what are you missing in your life that just makes you so angry? Like, go do something." Actually, I'm curious about this, and this is a very big point of discussion, debate online. I have that with my creators. We just had that conversation internally with our team a couple of days ago about authenticity. Like, is authenticity important? Why is it important, or why is it dangerous? And something that you said a little bit earlier, just in the last few minutes, you said, I'm being myself when I'm displaying toxic behaviors, but you also know that in that case, authenticity in that current state is bad. So what are your views overall on authenticity, and what does authenticity even mean to people, and what should we do about it?
I feel like that's why my platform has gotten to the point it is now, because I'm being authentically me, because I can mix in humor with, and very rarely can people mix in humor with abuse, domestic violence and stuff like that. But I've always added comical. Comedy has been a defense mechanism for me since I was little. So it just happens to fit into what I'm doing right now in a way. So I'm being authentically me. And the fact that I'm being authentic and I'm telling people what I'm doing, even if you say something negative about me, I'm just like, I said that. Like I told you wouldn't know that if I didn't tell you that. So the fact that you're trying to attack me for something I told you, it's kind of weird. It's just like what do we have going on inside of you? Tell me more about what you have going on inside of you, because I'm telling you, people. It's like, hey guys, I used to yell and scream at my wife. I was super emotionally disconnected from her. I'm not proud of that. I'm just telling y'all that so I can just build the story as to how I got to where I'm at right now. And people was like, oh, you yell and scream at your wife. You're a horrible, evil person. I'm like, yeah, I said that. You liked me. If I didn't say that, you liked me up until that. I've been saying that type of stuff for years. So it's wild. So authenticity helps actually protect me against negativity because I'm being authentic. I already said that. So you can't attack.
Interesting.
Most of the attacks most of the attacks on me now have to be like ad hominem. They have to try to insult me because insult who I am as opposed to what I'm doing, because I'm being authentically me. And I don't have to hide. I don't have to mask anymore, because holding up that mask and pretending to be somebody else is exhausting. That's one of the most exhausting things that I did for so long. Doing things I didn't actually want to do, saying things I didn't actually want to say, being places I didn't actually want to be. I hated that so much. But you feel like you need to do certain things to fit in. It sucks. So being able to be masked off and still be viewed as a good person and doing good deeds is an amazing feeling. So being authentic, it just means being you and being happy being you. Being self-acceptance for me has went a long way on my journey. I just, if you attack me for being me, it's just like, hey, what can I say to you? I can't help but be me. Yeah.
Do more research, do more thinking, come back with something worthwhile. Adam, what are your thoughts on authenticity?
Guys always come to me for dating advice, and I coach them through dating. They can't figure out how to talk to a woman. And I tell them the worst advice anybody can ever give you in the world is to just be yourself. Because what you're going to do, you're going to show up on a date with a Spider-Man t-shirt and sweatpants and Cheetos, on your shirt. You're not going to have brush your teeth. Don't show up as yourself. Show up as the best version of yourself. And that might mean you got to do some work to improve that version of yourself. You may have to go to therapy for a while. You might have to come coaching for attachment. You may need to get a haircut, go to the gym, right? Change, not change who you are, but become the best version of yourself. I think that when we talk about authenticity, we go all the way down to complete acceptance for the absolute worst version of a person. I think we can accept people, but I think we can move up to what we call them to be.
Yep.
I think it's funny you said about the Spider-Man shirt, because I would show up in a Spider-Man shirt just to see if you would judge me or not. Just like, what do you really feel? This is something my mind used to do. Because I used to always kind of dress bummy to see if people would judge me on how I dress and not who I actually am and whatnot. This is how my mind would just work right there. Just got to weed people out. It's just like, dude, how do you really feel about me? I'm dressing weird, my hair's messed up. Like, tell me how you really feel.
Yeah. Well, my policy is like, hey, if you're authentically a shit, you should inauthentically stop that. So just, if you know something is wrong, just fix it. Because the fact that you even are aware of that as a problem is a sign that is not really you. Like we have a conscience. Like we're conscious humans. Like we have this responsibility to ourselves, responsibility, if you believe in God, responsibility to God. If you don't, just, responsibility to something of value to improve and get better. That is life. It is this constant evolution. And just being stuck in your authentic issues is like actually inauthenticity. That is a toxic behavior that a lot of people can't let go of. And that's what holds them back from peace. Like it gives them tremendous suffering and the people around them. So anyways, this was a wonderful conversation.
Oh,
guys.
delightful
This is
conversation.
so interesting. And the time really flew by on this one.
This was wonderful, wonderful, wonderfully. This was everything I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
You are every inch the person I hoped you would be.
I appreciate it.
Do you have any other questions for Lee? Anything that we might have missed on touching on?
I feel like we could do another 10 hours of conversation. We're going to have to
should.
drag Lee back on.
There you
this
go.
was wonderful.
Oh, there's so many topics. Masculinity, responsibility, transformation, dating.
Wonderful,
There's a lot of stuff we can
Lee,
touch on.
I want to make sure that everybody at home can find you and can learn from you. Where can we find you and what do they need to know about you?
So I'm available. I'm everywhere online at mental illness. Mental instead of illness is healness, because that's how when I got started, I was like,
I like it.
mental, I'm healed. I'm trying to heal. So mental illness instead of illness. So I'm everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube for longer videos, because that's where I post most of my more in-depth stuff is over on YouTube and Facebook sometimes, but most of the time over on YouTube is my longer videos and whatnot. And if you want to email me, it's info@mentalillness.net.
Wonderful. All that will be down below in the show notes in the description. Everyone will find that as well.
I highly encourage, especially the guys out there, to go and look in to what we're talking about and take a look at Lee's stuff, because you will likely find many traits that are toxic to you that you may be manifesting, exhibiting, even carrying forward from past generations. And you have two options. Either you can continue living like this or you cannot, right? So make your choice and do it wisely. But first of all, please make sure you're actually informed and know what are your options and what are the possibilities of living in a different life. So take a look at Lee's stuff, and please, we would love to hear some form of thoughts or feedback or comments, questions for all of us. Please put them down below. Follow, subscribe, and we'll get to see you guys on our next episode.